Okay, Lita, thank you. Excuse me, Lita.
Yeah, Mas Tom. I start now.
All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Prof. Budi, and good afternoon, all of our classmates. Yeah, we can start our presentation. Yeah, thank you, Lita. All right, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you all this virtual presentation today. In this occasion, we are from the fourth group. We'd like to have a presentation under topic translation method, which will deliver to overseas articles and to local or national articles that related with our topic, which is a translation method. Okay, before the presentation begins, please allow us to introduce the presenters. The first one is me, Tomy Widiyanto, and the second presenter is Miss Litani Ika Budiarti. And without further ado, please allow me as the first presenter to start the presentations. All right, in my part, yeah, please go to the next slide, Miss Litani. The next slide, please. Okay, in my part, I will deliver two articles, consist of one overseas article and one of the local articles. The first article under title "The Use of Translation Methods in Transferring the Message from the Source Language to the Target Language." Excuse me, I would like to make sure first to you all here. Is my voice clear enough to listen to?
Yeah, it's audible.
Everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, it's audible.
Is my voice clear enough?
Yeah, it is audible.
Excuse me, everyone. Could you hear my voice?
Yeah, your voice is.
Miss Litani?
Your voice can be listened.
Yes, we can hear Mas Tom.
All right. Yeah. In this first article, under title "The Use of Translation Method in Transferring the Message from the Source Language to the Target Language," and the authors are Safriyadin, Salniwati, Siti Kasmiati, Syahrun, Sandi Suseno, and Abdul Alim. And the year of the article was in 2019. Yeah. Thank you, Sadam. Okay, thank you. And go on to the next slide, please, Ms. Litani. Okay, thank you. Yeah, go on to the next slide, please.
It's already on the background, Mas Tom.
The next one, Ms. Litani.
the background, right? It's already on the background slide.
Excuse me, please go on. Next slide, please.
Which one, Mas Tommy? Is it the
Yeah.
background or the
Uh,
problems?
the background of the study consists of 4 points here. The first is language. Yeah. The first is language, and the second one is message. Yeah, it's already. That's clear. Thank you. Yeah, may I continue? Yeah, the background. Now, it's clear. I'm explaining the background part of the research. Yeah, okay, continue. The background of the research of the study consists of 4 points. The background. The next slide. The second slide. Yeah, that's right. Which is this one. Okay. The first part is language, and then the second one is message. The next one is misunderstanding, and the last one is translations. As we know, everyone, that language is a medium of communication that holds a full function in human life interaction, particularly in delivering the message either between the same language user or different language user. And then the message addressed from one to another sometimes receive misunderstanding. And the message here means information or the meaning delivered by the writer to the reader in written text. And misunderstanding in interpreting the message from the source language to the touched language can affect the original message, even eliminates it. Therefore, the translations absolutely needs to comprehend many domains of languages and cultures in the world of literatures. Um, Embedded meaning of central concepts, expressions, and metaphor are also as problem in translation from English to another language. And here we go to the explanation to the next slide. Please move to the next slide, Ms. Litani, to the bottom. Okay, let me we're going to continue, please, Ms. Litani.
Yeah, Mas Tom, it's already on the next slide.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, Maybe I want to change. Yeah. For expression and metaphor are also a problem in translation from English to next slide. Okay. Excuse me, Miss Litani, can you hear my voice?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Uh, Please allow me to go on the presentations. Yeah, the slides shows us about the problem of the study that consists of 3 points. The first is ways in transferring the message. Yeah, and then the second one is dominant translation method that uh, can be seen from the result and findings of the research that that we are gonna discuss in the next slide. Yeah, and then the third point is the reasons of method used. Okay, the next slide, please, Miss Litani.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this study, based on the theory from Newmark, 1988, yeah, which is used to method here that emphasize to the source language and emphasize to the target language. This method belongs to the source language, include word for word translations, literal translations, faithful translation, and semantic translations. Meanwhile, that method that applies to the target language belongs to the educations, free translation, idiomatic translation, and communicative translations. Okay, go on to the next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, on the previous studies that may help to strengthen the research here. There are 5 previous studies that consist of from Sundari and Hussein in 2016, which said about translated method was technique or method of translations, which include translation technique such as drawing, literal translations, transportation, transpositions, mutilations, equivalence, adaptation, and compensations. Then they search about translation techniques used by the Indonesia EFL learners, such the literal translations, free translations, omissions, additions, compensation, with class replacements, explication, implication, and paraphrasing. And then another research investigate about the method which wrote by Uma Maheswari in 2019. And then the third one is Noor in 2018, also identified about the technique types of translation in English to Indonesian with the text of abstract of journal Edunomica 2018. And then from Aresta in 2018 was also analyzed about the type of the translation method. Uh, those research actually not the same with the objective in the papers of Aresta, because the focus of the study with translation method used by the students of non-English department of their sense of using the method. Meanwhile, there was also the research from Afifa in 2019, the study about translation method with translation procedures, preference of English department students, Universitas Erlangga on translating as soft fables. In Afifa research was different with this research because of the population in this paper were non-English department students and only focused on translation method, while Afifa used English department students and only focused on translation procedures. Therefore, discussion about translation is very important in these discussions of the paper. The research aimed to study about the use of translation method in transferring message from the source language to the target language. Okay, the next slide, please, Ms. Litani. Okay, we are going to deliver about the methodology. The first is about research design. The study used descriptive quantitative method, which it is chosen to analyze the dominant translation method used by the students in their reasons of selecting them without making any assumption or predictions. And then the research subjects were 35 students, but the sample taken were only 25 students under random sampling. Uh, they are as examples because there were 7 students did not translate the text and 3 students were not active in joining translation theory course. Okay, and then the data collection technique, it used observation with the instruments of observation sheets. And then the data analysis technique, collecting data, verification, analysis, and drawing conclusions. Okay, the next one, please. Yeah, going to the result of the research. The result of this research were derived from the answers on observation sheet done by the students in this research. This data were collected, verified, analyzed, and drew conclusions. With the descriptions, first we can see that from the translation method, word for word translation, there is only one that has percentage amount of 4%, and the student's reason is this method was used because it directly positioned the original source text to the touched text versions and called as interlineal translations. The student said that the method depends on the word orders for maintaining it and only look for words, equivalence, and general meaning. Example of the student's answer as follow. From the source language, hasil penelitian menunjukkan bahwa manfaat tradisi gotong royong pokat dulu pada masyarakat di Desa Welele, Kecamatan Barangka, Kabupaten Muna Barat berupa efisiensi pekerjaan. It can be translated in the target language as the result of the research showed that the benefits of the mutual corporations pokat dulu tradition in the community in the Welele village, Barangka sub-district, West Muna Regency were in the form of job efficiency. So it can be said that from target language text to source language text above show that nearly every single word order student one was directly translated or preserved to target language word order. Such hasil penelitian become to the result of research. And then menunjukkan become showed. Then manfaat to benefits and tradisi to traditions and gotong royong to mutual corporations. Meanwhile, for faithful translation as the method that emphasizes to the source language, there is no. And then the literal translation, there are 7 preference from the students. And then the percentage is to 28%. That method was used because it could help to solve undefined words as the problem in the source text to be more natural and equivalent conversion to the target text. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, about the semantic translations. There is only one student that translate in the method of semantic translation that emphasizes to the source language. With the reason is this method was used by the students because it pressed on terminology usage, keywords, and expression with considering aesthetical aspect flexible of the source text and compromise the logical meaning or message to the target language text. And the example is from source language, proses internalisasi mengenai tradisi Poka dulu dan segala sesuatu yang melekat pada aktivitas itu termasuk nyanyian rakyat pada masyarakat desa Walalai berlangsung secara simultan. And then we can what is it? We can say that from the touch to the touched language, it will be the process of internalizations of the vocabulary tradition and everything inherent in the activity, including folk song for the Walalai village community, took place simultaneously. So from source language text to target language text above is more flexible in transferring the meaning or message of SL to TL as character or of semantic translation such as segala sesuatu yang melekat pada atas itu to everything inherent in the activity, like that. Okay, go on please, Ms. Litani. Yeah, and then we're going to talk to the method that emphasizes two target language. The first is free translation, because in adaptation method there is no preference that the students made here. Okay, there are 16 on free translations that students have made, and then the percentage is 64%, and the reason is this method did not bound to the grammatical form of the touched language text, but the content of the text was the most priority. This method was sometimes in paraphrase from then its source text with aim of getting clearer content or message could be received by the user. And the example is from source language, pengumpulan data melalui teknik observasi can be translated into the target language into in conducting data collection observation technique. And then the other example is sedangkan teknik analisis data menggunakan can be translated into target language become while the data analysis technique used is going. Okay, and then the other one is metode penelitian yang digunakan adalah to be the search method used is. Okay, and so on. So from SL text to TL text above shows that free translation method transferred the message from SL to TL with focuses on content and structure of form, longer paraphrase, and without the manner. They are such as pengumpulan data to in conducting data collection, teknik analisis data menggunakan to the data analysis technique used is going, and metode penelitian to the research method. That's it. Okay, let's continue to the next slide, please, Ms. Litani. Yeah. Okay, we have discussions, and we can infer that the free translation is the dominant method used by the students with a total of 16 students, and the percentage is 64%. And then a literal translation with total of 7 students, which the percentage is 28%. And then word for word translation for only 1 students with 4%. And then semantic translation for 1 student is also 4%. And then the fifth one is faithful translation, adaptations, idiomatic, and communicative translation is not used by the students. Okay, the next slide, please. Yeah, it can be concluded that there are many translation methods may be used to transfer the message from the source language text to the target language text. And we know that free translation is one of translation methods chosen by the students with certain reasons as what the researchers found in this study. No matter what the translation method used from the text of source language to the target language text, the most important makes equivalent message which can be read and understood because every language has own culture aesthetic. Okay. Continue, please. Okay, now I'm going to continue to the discussion of the second articles and the title Translation Method for Animal Images in Li Sao with the author is Chen Mao Tian, and the year is 2018. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, this is the display when we search in the article. Okay, thank you, Ms. Litani. Yeah, and the background of the research came from four aspects here. The first is Chinese literature, and then Chu Xi, or the Song of the South, and then Li Sao itself, and then the translations. Okay, well, let me explain first. In this research, we know that Susi, we have to know that the Susi, or the Song of the South by Q Yuan and other poet copies a very important place in Chinese literatures. And Li Sao, or Encountering Sorrow by Q Yuan, is the most important part of Susi as a cultural and literary canon. Li Sao is full of cultural images, especially animal images, which create challenges for translator. In this study, uh, we will briefly discuss the method for translating animal images in the English translation of Li Sao by some previous studies that come from Su in 1994, and then Yang 2001, and Su 2006, and Hawkes 1959. In light of relevance theory from Speber and Wilson 1986. Okay, the next slide, please, Miss Litani. Okay, that I have explained previously that the problems were from Chinese literature, cultural images in Josie, and then the symbolic meanings of animal images. Okay, the next slide, please. Yeah, and then the theoretical foundation is from based on Sperber and Wilson 1986. Assumption is relevant in a context if and only if it has some contextual effect in that context, and that optimal relevance lies in the achievement of the greatest contextual effect with the least processing effort. Okay, the next slide, please, Ms. Litani. Yeah, and then the previous studies comes from Hawkes, and then Xu and Yang Zhou, that investigate about the animal images in Li Sao, and we know that Li Sao is cultural images that displayed from a poet by Ku Yuan in China. And then for previous studies, the first is Hawkes in 1959, sorry. And then Hawkes said that in Sioux or Li Sao, such as Kiji, because there are some Chinese written texts that we cannot explain by orally. We can just explain by the bracket, the word in the bracket, like CZ, and then Fei Long, and then Xiao Long, Luan Huang, Si Now, Zen Chiu, Ti Chu, and so on, which can evoke target language, mass imagination, and associations. And then there are two animals that common animals can be described in the Li Sao. There are dragon and phoenix. Okay, the next slide, please. In this method of the research, The design is descriptive qualitative research, and then the research subject is the culture images in Lissau, and data collection technique is observation with the instrument of observation sheet, and then the data analysis technique is collecting data, verification, analysis, and drawing conclusions. Okay, the next slide, please. And the result of the study can be seen as follow: that the zoo, there are some words can be found from the animal images. The first is dragon, phoenix, and phoenixes, giant bird, falcon, turtle dove, autumn bird, dragon, a dragon steed, and steed. And then from young, the animal images can be found like jet green dragons, bird with plumage gold, royal bluebird, the phoenix, falcon, turtle dove, cuckoos, dragon, eight horses, and dragons. And then from zoo, the animal images are for dragon, phoenix carriage, phoenixes, the present, turtle dove, cuckoos, dragon, eight dragon steed, and trophies. And then from hawkers, the first is jet dragon, phonic figure car, bird of heaven, phoenixes, magpie, and then shrike for the dragons, a dragon steed, dragon steed. Okay, and the cultural images of ecological images in Lissau can be seen like 6 images on the slide. Yeah, the most left is about dragon, and then the right side is like a bird, and then the bottom one is also bird. Yeah. Okay, continue to the next slide, please. According to the data analysis, the frequency of the translation method used by the 4 translators to translate animal images is listed in the table below. Okay, you can see from the previous slide, there are some pictures that can be found in Lissau as the poem or poetry in China that created by Q Yuan. There are four. Yeah, there are four from Su, and then 5 from Yang and Yang, and then 5 from Zhu, and then 4 from Hawkes. Okay, the data in the table show us that literal translation and substitution are 2 main translation methods for animal images used by the 4 translation. Okay, the next slide, please. Yeah, in these discussions, we can understand that but autumn birds may cry in tears, and then young spring is but brief, and then zoo for describing cuckoos begins the chuckle, and then hawkers explain that beware lest the shrike sound his note before the equinox, causing all the flowers to lose their line fragrance, like that. Okay, continue to the next slide, please. And then for the conclusions, we may infer that there are many animal images used in sushi, and that these images have both literal and metaphorical meanings. In translating Lishao, special attention should be paid to the animals with symbolic meanings. Only by achieving the optimal relevance in the target text can target readers understand the original culture image easily. Okay, I think that's all from me. Yeah, let's continue to the next presenter, Now moving along to the Miss Litani as the next presenter. Please welcome Miss Litani. The chance is yours.
Thank you, Mas Tommy. Okay, wait. So, good afternoon, my friends. Good afternoon, Prof. Rudi. And I would like to continue the presentation. Wait. So, this is the first journal articles from me. The title is Translation Methods in Political Speeches, a case study of English translation of President Joko Widodo's inaugural address, and the author is Muhammad Ehsan Pamungkas. It's written on 2020, and it's on Paradigma Jurnal Kajian Budaya, volume 10, number 2. So this is what the journal looks like, and this is the background. So here we have political speeches and translation method. So as we know, translation is actually a complex activity, and it is much more than just a linguistic activities. So the problem here that make the author want to write this kind of journal is that because there is a lack of research in the field of political speeches translation method. And about the political speeches itself, it is considered as a unique nature and complexity of a text. It is special text genre, and also when you are going to translate a political speeches, you have to have a certain knowledge on political tradition and custom. And then this is the problems when you are going to translate political speeches. At least there are wide range of issues like the economic maybe or others, social, political issues, and then ideological factors and sociocultural differences, and then retaining aspects and elements of source text. This one, the retaining aspects of elements and source of the text, it has something to do with the special genre of the political speeches. I will explain it later. And this is the theoretical foundation that used by the author. We have Carter's parts of speech and its rhetorical purposes, Muliana's classification of political speeches, and Newmark's 1988 translation methods, which is focused on the semantic and communicative translation method in this article. So this is the Newmark translation methods. We have 8 here: word for word translation, literal translation, faithful translation, semantic translation, adaptation, free translation, idiomatic translation, and communicative translation. And this is the comparison between semantic and communicative translation methods. So, as I have said, this paper focuses on these two methods. And then, this is the previous studies used by the researcher. We have Mulyana, Badran, Ali, Cartris, and Black, Pamungkas. And this is the methodology. So the research design is qualitative case study research with comparative conceptual method. As I said, that the author will compare between the semantic and the communicative method. And then the research procedure, he selected sentences and the translation method analysis. And the research data is from President Jokowi political speech that is translated into English language by Robin Valik. He is an Australian translator, and he has history working with the previous president from Suharto. And then this is the data analysis technique. And this is the findings. So as you can see on the diagram here, in the President Jokowi political speech, you will find this one, the blue one for the semantics translation, and the red one for the communicative translation. Okay, wait. It's around 60 It is taken from 62 sentences in the ST entity, and 85% are translated by using semantic translation method, while this one is 15% translated by using communicative method. And this is the first case translation, the second, the third, and the fourth, five, until, and so on. And we also have salutation in Indonesian and English. So this is the discussion. So the result of the research show that semantic translation method is mostly used for translating the body part of the speech, while the opening and the closing part of the speech is translated by using communicative translation method. As the results show, the most appropriate method for translating political speeches is the semantic translation. The table suggests a translation that is produced using semantic translation method remains within the SL culture. So this we can see the proof in here. In case 4, for example, kita akan kembangkan layar yang kuat. It is translated become we will unfold a strong sail. And then kita akan hadapi semua badai dan gelombang samudera dengan kekuatan kita sendiri. We will face all storms and ocean swells with our own strength. Here, the translator using semantic translation method. While for this one, for table 11 here, hadirin yang mulia, saudara-saudara sebangsa dan setanah air, hadirin yang saya muliakan, this one is salutation in Indonesian. It is translated using communicative translation method. Honorable invited guest, my fellow Indonesians, distinguished audience. So, when translating the inaugural address of President Joko Widodo, the translator preserves SL cultural elements in the translation. This one, actually, we can also see from the, this one, from the table 9, greetings in Indonesian and English. This one, the translator actually use zero translation because she want to maintain the SL culture in our language. The translator explained the cultural born phrases and word in the footnote. When it comes to religious greetings, it will be advisable for the translators to preserve those religious greetings in TT. The translator managed to preserve the characteristic of Indonesian speeches. It does not refer to the style of speeches in any English-speaking countries. So here we have like special text kind of genre in speeches, and this one are the characteristics of Indonesian speeches. Political speeches in Indonesia do not always end with an epilogue. They commonly begin with religious greetings and salutation by addressing a list of guests. This is uncommon for speech outside Indonesia, and usually political speeches in Indonesia also contain several literary features such as a poem or a pantun, and they rarely begin with a joke. And in Indonesian setting, what is considered as political speech also includes those delivered by president, ministers, or governors who are in power and are not always in the position to argue with their opponents or opposition parties. So this is actually one of the reasons why it's called special text genre, because it's different. And the conclusion of this article, we have 4 here. The first one, in the translation of the inaugural address of President Joko Widodo, semantic translation method is most favored by the translator, followed by communicative translation method. The second one, semantic translation method is used in the body part of the speech, while communicative translation method is used in the opening part and the closing part of the speech. And the third one, the application of semantic translation method is expected to preserve those distinct and unique characteristics contained in the speech. And the last one, semantic translation and communicative translation can be regarded as the most appropriate methods for translating political speeches in general. And so that's the end of my first article. And this is the second one. The translation methods of cosmetic brand name. I'm sorry. The author is Yu Zhang, 2017. It's on the Advances in Social Science, Education and Humanity Research Journal. And this is what the journal look like. And we have the background here, the development of economy, causing the growing of commercial activities, especially cosmetic enterprise in China. So yes, the journal is from China, the author is a Chinese, and the cosmetic brand translation should make consumer feel beautiful. So as we know, it's not easy for any translator to translate a brand name. It is not only that we have to translate the word to become meaningful, but also to make the buyer want to buy from us. And here we have two basic principles as the background of the study, which is, as I said before, linguistic advantages and cultural identity. And the problems, features and functions of the brand names, principles of brand translation, methods of cosmetic and brand translations. So why these three become the main problems? Because when we are going to translate a cosmetic brand, it is really different with just translating a text. And this is the theoretical foundations used by the writer. We have here Peter's approaches to translation, Vermeer's corpus and commission and translational action, and only for it's a little bit information. Scopus translation theory is the theory that usually used to translate some brand or kind like advertisement and so on. And then we also have Xinghua's practical translation course and Murphy's brand strategy. So these are the preview studies. We have Anya Ping on 2004, Chen Kuoming, Chen Zedong, Jiang Ji, Wu Lili, Xu Xingming, Xu Yingxin, Zelefeng Suyan. And they are all talking about translation in cosmetic brand or in advertisement. It's actually almost the same, each of them. And this is the methodology. We have research design, qualitative research. The procedure is by discipline, brand translation methods, stylistic features, rules of word selection, and lexical characteristic analysis. So here, the writer, the writer analyze these three disciplines: brand translation methods, stylistic features, and so on. And then the research data are cosmetic brand names, and the data analysis technique is this one: collecting the data, identification and verification, analysis, and drawing conclusion. And the findings, the methods of cosmetic brand translation, we have 4 here: transliteration, free translation, conversion, and simplification. And the principles brand translation, we also have 4: abbreviation and acronyms, innovative and fantastic, extension and association, and feminist diction. So these are the findings. I put it into the table. The first one is the methods of brand translation. We have transliteration method. Clean, clear from the search text. It becomes clean in target text. And this is actually in line with the product purpose because it is faced with young woman which is smart, independent, and full of passion. So if you actually speak Chinese, this one actually the pronunciation is a little bit sounds similar, yeah. So the translation in here is like the one that they heard from the original one. I don't speak Chinese, so I do not know how to spell it. But it's actually have similar pronunciation. Like this one, Nuskin become Rusin, and this is Elizabeth Arden, but in Chinese, I do not know how to pronounce it, but yeah, it's like that. And then this is free translation, Max Factor become Misefuto. So in the free translation here, actually the brand is translated like it is taken from each of the word, but here the translator they like how to say it. They make it appropriate to their own language. So the meaning is actually almost the same, but yeah, no, actually the meaning is the same, but they also make it meaningful in their own language. And then this is the conversion, Neutrogena from naturalis and genus in Latin. It means newborn, implies the meaning of creating the natural effect, become ludesing, clean, fresh, and clear. And because this brand name, the Neutrogena brand name, is actually quite popular in China, and it is famous for kind of comfortable clean skin soap at its first runtime. So they translated into Ludesing. So when they translate the brand name, they also look at the history of the product during which it is released in their country. So what is the woman actually felt after they use the product. And then the simplification, safeguard and head shoulders become sufuja and haifesi. It is almost the literal translation, but it is not. So it's simplification in their language. It's like what they heard and then they simplify it. And then here, the principles of brand translation, we have abbreviation and acronyms. Like pure mild become Bomei, standing in the harbor of beauty. It is the meaning, yeah. And then Yves Saint Laurent become Seng Lulan. You can see here the writing in Chinese. I don't know. But actually this is the acronym. So Sheng Lulan actually the almost the same with this one, YSL, this one, and this one. And then we have innovative and fantastic principle of brand translation like Shiseido. This one comes from Japanese word, become Tang. So they actually look into the literature further, like this Tang. The season comes from the Chinese ancient book, the Book of Changes, that means new life. So they translate it like that to make the woman interested to their product because it means when they use the cosmetic, they will have a new life. And then we have extension and association. Johnson's, it's very popular product. It becomes Shangsen. So as I said before, they usually translate it because they heard it like similar to the pronunciation of Johnson in their ear in their language. But here, Xiangshang has rich connotation which can make people associate it to a baby's healthcare and healthier growth. And we also have Revlon. Oh, I'm sorry, it should be a little bit up. So Revlon in the history of the cosmetic according to the Chinese people, it also has a connotative meaning not connotative meaning, but like association with most unforgettable women. But here they translated into Lu Huanong that makes people associate with beautiful morning dew, just like women's exquisite and smooth skin. And then we also have feminist diction. Estee Lauder become Yasin Landai, typical female words which can make the person purchase beautiful reverie. And poison become Pai Aishan instead of literal Duyao. So the literal translation of poison is actually Duyao, but when the Chinese people use Duyao, they will think it as a poison that is in negative way. So that's why they use Bai Aishan instead of Duyao. And this is the discussion. Cosmetic translation refers to the translation of all relevant text and discourse, including brand name, brand ad, brand characteristics, instruction, and so on. So as I have said before, that it is actually also look at the history of the product also, and yeah, all of them, the ad, the product characteristic, the instruction. And then brand name is the concentration of one company or one product. And cosmetic brand translation has a number of utilities such as information dissemination. It's like what the women feel after they use the product, maybe. And the trademark translation is not only a process of transformation of two different language, but it is more to consider the cross-cultural communication. The value embodiment is the basis discipline of cosmetic brand translation. Sorry. And this is the second one about the discussion. According to the information requirements of functional equivalence, translation of brand names should be characterized as possible and with the information contained. And the leading function of cosmetic brand name is consumer appeal. Brand name translation should be meaningful and it should also have aesthetic significance. And a good cosmetic brand translation can not only translate the benefit of using it, but also can draw people's attention in the sea of various brand names in the accelerated tempo of life and in the complex society. So I have said before, it's once again more about linguistic use, but also to advertise to people, to affect them, to catch their attention on the product. And this is the conclusion. There is a certain complexity of the cosmetic brand name translation, but a lot of flexibility is obvious in the way of translating. It is necessary to have a rich imagination and artistic inspiration in brand translation. When translate a cosmetic brand name, there are rules of word selection such as clear, intelligible, innovative, and fantastic. We cannot ignore the lexical characteristic of cosmetic brand translation like extension, association, and feminist diction. Translators should not only use the linguistic advantages, but also make use of cultural identity. In one word, cosmetic brand translation must be close to the readers so as to achieve the merchandise for the promotion and advise the purchase to the performance objective. So it has to be short but meaningful and also have aesthetic significance. And I think that's all from me.
Okay, thank you, Miss Litani, for the informative and brief. All right, everyone. Now we come to questions and answer sessions. There will be two sessions, and each session is for two questions. Please don't forget to turn on your microphone.
Hello, Mas Tommy and Litani.
Yeah.
I would like
Yeah.
to ask how can literal translation emphasize to the source language in translation method?
Okay, Miss Maria, thank you for the questions. Yeah. Let me repeat. How can literal translation emphasize to the source language in translation method? Right. And then the next questions, please. Please, is there anyone who wanna ask? Oh yeah, Mas Rizky.
Okay, Mas Tommy. So I'm still wondering about some word that you have said before,
Oh
and
yeah. Yes.
I'm wondering about what are the differences between literal meaning, and then the second one was metaphorical meaning, and the last one symbolic meaning. So literal meaning, metaphorical meaning, and symbolic meaning. Do you get my
Okay, we
point?
got your point. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for addressing the questions. Yeah. What are the differences between literal meaning, metaphorical meaning, and symbolic meaning? Okay, two questions first. Uh, and then we directly want to discuss first to find the answers. Yeah, Miss Litani.
Yeah, please give us some time to discuss first, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, two questions belongs to my part, yeah, actually. Okay, so please allow me to answer the questions from Miss Maria first, yeah. The question is, how can literal translation emphasize to the source language in translation method? We have to see the theoretical foundation first from Newmark in 1988 that says that translations is rendering the meaning of a text into another language in the way that the author intended the text. So in short, the meaning of the text should be the same with the author's aim with when it is translated. In literal translation, it can be said that it is direct translation or word for word translation. It is a translation of a text done by translating each word separately. So we have to look for at how the words are used together in a phrase or in a sentence. Because we have to look in each phrase or a sentence, it will help source language with the same structures in the target language, such as Indonesian to English, as the original language of a work in Indonesia, used by its author to assert his idea in a text. So it will be is for the reader to understand from the source language, from the target language, they come from the source language. So the method of the literal translation can be easily identified like that, Miss Maria.
Okay, Mas Tom, I see. Thank you, Mas Tom.
Okay, my pleasure, Miss Maria. Okay, and then the next questions was from Mas Rizky. The questions is, what are the differences between literal meaning, metaphorical meaning, and symbolic meaning? Uh, we know that literal meaning is exactly as stated, read and understood without additional interpretation meaning. And according to the letter of verbal expression, real, not figurative or metaphorical. Meanwhile, the metaphorical is a part of symbolic meaning. That figures of speech, they are not true in a literal way. So in symbolic meaning, it is pertaining to a symbol that can be defined as figurative language that to describe something often through comparison with something different. Let me give the example. For literal meaning, in a sentence like, it's raining very heavily. It was raining very heavily. It is different. It will be different when it changed into figurative language, become it's raining cats and dog. So the word, the phrase cats and dog here has some meaning with very heavily, like that, Mr. Rizky. And then the other example is, he broke my heart. Your heart isn't literally broken, but you're just feeling hurt and sad, like that. So in this figurative language, we use other ways to describe something with certain symbol or with other feelings to make the readers can know the unliteral meaning from the text. And then from the literal meaning, it can be seen that the true meaning or the true text is defined from word by word, like that, Mas Rizky.
Okay, Mr. Tommy. Fair enough. That makes sense as well. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mas Rizky, for the questions, and Mbak Maria. And go on to the next sessions. Two questions more, please.
Yeah, hello, Mas Tommy.
Okay, Miss Irma, please, your questions.
Hello, my name is Irma, and I will ask to your group. Your group has presented about semantic and literal translation, and I still curious the differences between semantic and literal translation. Could you please explain it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Irma. Your question is, what is the difference between semantic translation and literal translations, right?
Yes, Mas.
Okay, and the next, yeah, thank you. The next questions, please.
Hello, Mas Tom. Could you hear me?
Okay, Miss Sumu, yeah, I'm listening your voice.
Thank you for the time. I have a question for you guys. My question is, it is said that one of the features of brand name is identification expediently. Further translation is not only about transforming the two languages, but also to consider the cross-cultural communications. From the translation method mentioned before, which one pattern can be used in Indonesia context? Do you think it's suitable in Indonesian culture?
Excuse me, Miss Sumu, can you make it your voice louder, please?
It is
Yeah.
said that one of the features of brain is identification expediently. Terminal translation is not only about transforming the two different languages, but also to consider the cross-cultural communications. From the four translation methods mentioned, which one do you think can be used in Indonesia context? And do you think it's suitable in Indonesian culture or for the customer in general? Is it clear
Okay.
now?
Yeah. Okay, that's clear. Thank you, Miss Umu, for your questions. Okay, we
Thank you
got the
for the
point that we have explained about four translation method. We have already mentioned. Which one do we think can be used in Indonesian context? Do we think it is
Yes,
suitable
okay.
suitable in Indonesian culture or for the customer in general? Like that. Okay, I think these questions belong to the part of Miss Litani. Miss Litani, could you please answer the questions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. First, I would like to start with the question from Miss Irma, ya. The difference between semantic and literal translation, if I'm not mistaken. Is it, Miss Irma?
Yes, Miss Lita.
Okay, thank you. So what we have to remember here is that the literal translation is a sort of word for word translation, while semantic translation must also express the meaning. So the semantic translation is a sort of text transfer to recreate the exact contextual meaning of the source language, also in the target language. So while translation just like translate the word for word, the semantic translation also consider the aesthetic. So like Mas Tommy have given the example from the literal meaning is actually almost the same. That we don't just like translate, for example, metaphor into word to word, but we actually translate it into an aesthetic one that still has the significance to the source language. And I think that's all. Do I answer your question, Miss Irma?
That was clear, Miss Lita. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then the second question from Miss Umuya.
Yes.
So the question is, wait, from the four translation methods mentioned, which one do you think can be used in Indonesian context? Okay, so this is about cosmetic brand names, and I don't think that we, the Indonesian people, are used to the translation of cosmetic brand. So actually, yes, we have some brand from the other countries, but we do not necessarily translate the brand name, and usually we just translate the instruction on it and what is inside the cosmetic product. So if you ask me what methods to translate brand name, I don't think we have one that is suitable because it's not necessarily used in Indonesian. As we know, like we have Oriflame, but it's still Oriflame, right? And then we also have makeover, and we still call it as makeover. And we usually translate only the instruction and the ingredients within the cosmetic brand. So if we are going to translate the instruction and the ingredients inside it, I think it is still relevant if we use the Scopus theory that was discussed before in the cosmetic brand translation article before. So it is still about the advertisement kind. So we also have to consider like the linguistic use, but also the aesthetic significance in which we draw the buyer to us. So I think that's all from me. Do I answer your question, Miss Umu?
Yes, Veda, it's clear now. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you for all the questions. Thank you, Miss Litani, for the answers. It's brief and
Yeah,
very
yeah.
clear. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Finally, we come to the end part of our presentation today. We would like to say thank you to presenters for the informative explanation and to the audience for active participations. Hopefully, today's presentation will be beneficial for us. Thank you for the attention. Thank you, Prof. Rudy, for the chance. The last we say, Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh. Thank you
wabarakatuh.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.